What was I supposed to say? I am mostly recording this video so that I can do a quick test of my new mic settings. So if you let me know what it sounds like in the description below, that would be good. But just changed a couple of things up, particularly regarding filters, so hopefully that gets a little bit better and we don't get that weird staticky sound that was coming up in my last stream. But I figured while I was here, I'll do a quick rundown of solo deck construction in the Marble Champions LCG. So today is the Sunday before the release of THOR, which means that we currently have packs for leadership and protection, but I'm missing packs for aggression and justice, but we know all the cards coming in the aggression pack, which is THOR coming out on Friday. So I will discuss that in its own section right at the end of the video. I'll try to avoid discussing it beforehand, so it'll come up in the aggression section a little bit. So the way I've got this split up, I'm going to talk about each of the 4 aspects, what they bring to deck construction when you're trying to build it, and just kind of touch on what characters can and can't use it in a more broad overview sense, so that the video doesn't come dated as soon as a new character comes out. So you have more of an idea. So this is aimed at beginners, someone who's looking to get into solo that maybe hasn't played much, if any. And the focus will be, with my discussions, I will be mostly discussing the expert mode. I genuinely don't consider standard when I'm playing, though most of the things here would apply exactly the same. It's just I don't play it, so I don't know what the main differences are. I just know it's easier for the most part. But anyway, so let's go on to the first aspect, which is aggression, because I've got these in alphabetical order. So aggression cards focus on damage. Anyone that's played the game can probably work that out. There's a lot of deal damage cards, increase your attack. But one thing to note with regard to solo, you really want to be well-rounded, because you're doing everything, not just the one thing that you'll be doing in multiplayer. And aggression has no unconditional way to fraud. There's no ally over one fraud in the aggression set, and Chasing Down is the only card that removes threat. And there's basically no basic cards that supplement threat removal. Emergency is both bad and the only fraud event, whereas if you're looking for damage, there's always Haymaker, which is not overly efficient, but at least it's something. There's only really one current sub-theme, which is a focus on minion killing, which Relentless Assault does, Melee basically does, outside of the Wreck and Crew scenario, because it hits 2 different things. Chasing Down is obviously a minion killing card, and I'm pretty sure there's something else, but I'm blanking on it. Oh wait, no, that's on the thought pack. Never mind. So with aggression, there's 2 main deck archetypes. There's the Hulk deck, where you focus on really focusing on your resource icons, trying to make sure that you only have physical and energy if at all possible. Most are physical, like preference for physical, because you're trying to maximize the use of the Hulk card. It works a lot better in solo, because those energy resources aren't going to take out all your friends' minions as well. Allies, or your friends' allies as well. But you do typically want to have more physical over energy. It's really good in certain situations, in certain characters. For instance, characters that have a lot of mental, like She-Hulk. She-Hulk is like nearly 50 out of her 15 cards. She's got 3 energy, 6. 3 energy, 6 physical, 5 mental, and then wild. Um, so the the her focus is actually physical and mental, which makes Hulk discard itself pretty often, which is not what you're looking for. So if I was going to play She-Hulk, I would actually avoid a Hulk deck. I would go for a good stuff aggression deck. Now, good stuff you're going to notice. I'm going to mention it basically every time. It's that deck. It's that deck you make when you just take the things that are really efficient, the cards that are good individually, rather than taking things that make some weird combo or are super synergistic. Now, I don't always think it's going to be the best deck. It's definitely not. I don't think it'll be the best deck at all, like for the entire future of the game, because sometimes particular combos, particular synergistic cards are going to work a lot better in certain characters, and like that card isn't very good individually, but it's very good with that character. So stuff like that will happen, and you'll end up with more sub themes going forward. But these are the ones that I think are currently available that you will see if you were to just go on Marvel CDB, open up some random decks. I think you could probably sort it into one of these 2 buckets most of the time. There are some exceptions, like I've been playing in a Rage Spider-Man deck. Rage is not a good card, would not be good stuff, and it's definitely not a Hulk deck because it's like 50% mental resources and doesn't include Hulk. So there are exceptions. These are just like, if you're looking for a starting point, I'd go with one of these 2. These ones are more proven than other archetypes. Now, I've been talking about the aggression cards of the Thor pack. Once again, not released yet. All cards are known. I'll discuss it at the end. Go into more detail, so there'll be a bit more aggression towards the end if you want to. If you're either from the future and the Thor pack's already out, or you just don't care about spoilers, you just jump to the end of this video, and we'll be talking about that. So let's go on to the next one, which is Justice. Justice is entirely focused on threat. Threat removals, side scheme removals. Their only real sub-theme is interaction with side schemes. It's the only aspect that does it. And they do it with Jessica Jones, followed, and I think that's it at the moment. But there's not a lot of Justice cards because we don't have the Black Widow pack yet, which will be the Justice pack, the first Justice pack. So it's only core set plus the 2 cards that have come out in the Captain America and Miss Marvel packs. So there's not a lot of Justice cards. We'll see how it evolves going forward. But at the moment it has minimal ways to deal damage, but you can supplement that with basic cards. So what do I mean by that? To start with my basic, I'm talking about Haymaker. Haymaker's not the best card, it's not the most efficient, but if you need damage, you can always take Haymaker. Whereas if you need Thwart, you don't have an equivalent card to take. So Justice kind of needs damage. I would think in a lot of Justice decks, obviously hero cards notwithstanding, like there are times where you just don't need it because the hero cards can do it for you. Similar with the Thwart from the last one. The Justice. Actually, let's go back to the last one for a sec. There was a point I wanted to make here. The reason this Thwart stuff is important is sometimes your hero can't manage it on their own. So if you're looking for a character who I would think would not actually work that well with aggression, so I don't know why you're looking for a bad combination, but let's say you are. You're looking for a character that has 1 fort on their card to start with. 2 fort is actually pretty efficient, especially in solo, because that's every time you fort, you're basically taking 2 turns of the standard ticking fort up, so you can keep it relatively low fairly easily. Um, the So you're looking for someone that has 1 fort. You're looking for someone that has no way in their hero set to remove forts unconditionally. So She-Hulk, for instance, has 1 fort and has some ways to remove fort in its legal practice and superhuman law division. Both of those are superhuman law division is a pretty good card, and the legal practice is okay. It does something that She-Hulk can't normally do very well, which gives it an important spot for her deck. But both of them require her to be an alter ego. Yes, you will flip in She-Hulk all the time, but that also puts more threat on the scheme, meaning you need more for to deal with it. So She-Hulk aggression, you really need to focus in on winning as soon as possible, because you do not have the ability to fort. And on some situations, such as the Ultron fight is a big example that I would use for this. In some situations, you cannot reliably just keep pushing through it. You're not going to be like Ultron 3 is a pretty significant stopping block. It will stop you where you are, and the his main schemes are just terrible. That first one is the only one that's good, and it spawns so quickly. So you end up in a situation where you need to fort a lot to make sure the game goes a little bit longer so that you can actually win. And she can't do it. Spider-Man is in a similar situation outside of Ultron 3, because you always have a minion in that. But the Spider-Man is conditional because he cannot remove threat. If besides this 1 fort, if there's no minion in play. So he can have a hard time against Rhino. You can fairly easily rush down Rhino. His hit points are just so low in solo. But if there is ever a encounter set that comes out that's similar, where it's actually dangerous, so no minions, reasonable amount of hit points focused on the villain attacking rather than minions overwhelming you, he won't be able to deal with it. His spider traces won't go off. So he won't be able to deal with the threat. But the flip side of that is Miss Marvel. Miss Marvel only has 1 fort, but she 100% doesn't care. Sneak by, particularly Shrink, is more than enough to deal with your fort potential most of the time. You will lose some games to it, but it's not going to be. Oh, sorry, we're in there. It's not going to be anywhere near as bad as the other two I was just mentioning there. And a bit more on that in a bit. Anyway, let's go back to Justice. Yeah, but with Justice, if you have someone that can't deal damage, which the best example I think is Iron Man. He's got 1 attack on his main character. His only other attacks, he's got some cards that do attacks, but they're one kind of needs to be aerial and costs a little bit, and then the other one is random, whether it just does 1 damage or more. And then obviously you can control it a bit. It's the repulsive blast, you can put more energy in your deck so it hits more reliably. But also, and he's got the powered gauntlets. which can hit for 1 or 2 if airborne. So they add up to a bit, but it's all like 1 and 2s. If you get, you'll be doing a reasonable, like once you're fully built, you'll be doing a reasonable amount of damage per turn, but not a lot overall. Iron Man's just strong in general, even in solo. But because Justice Iron Man has so minimal extra ways to deal damage, it can take those games can take a while, which leads to the possibility of losing through some unfortunate set of cards. This isn't as big a deal because you can just put in haymakers. Put in some haymakers in Iron Man in particular. Their energy, so they're going to power up with Repulsor Blast. You can just straight up deal some more damage, but you don't really have anything else you need to do in your hand. Like, it's generally pretty good. Then on side scheme interactions, they only really have good stuff archetype though. It's the big thing with Justice. I don't think they have any cards that are situationally very useful. They're all kind of sit at this like one point. This card's always useful. This card's sometimes useful. Like I guess followed, but that's dependent on the villain, not on your. Dependent on the villain you're playing, not on whether it's good, not on the deck that you built. So I would generally and it's pretty good when it goes off. So I would generally just fit space into a good stuff deck for it. I wouldn't build a deck around followed. And I don't think they have a card that you could build, the card or set of cards or combo that you can build around. But part of that is the fact that we just don't have a lot of Justice cards. 2 more than the full set is not a lot still. The important thing though, we don't know very many of the Black Widow pack cards, but there appears to be a sub-theme in preparations. Now, Black Widow is obviously focused on preparations, but but we're also seeing some support for them in the actual set. So we're getting Agent Coulson, who was spoiled on the stream, who allows you to find a preparation card. We're getting a preparation card with a Justice preparation card. We're getting ones for every aspect, but it's not that big a deal. But it'll create this like semi-sub thing that you could use on a different character that, depending on how much is in there, there's not a lot of cards in each of these packs. Only the Thor pack only has 7 aggression cards. Not a lot of new cards, I should say. So it's entirely possible that it'll only be like those 2 cards, and then maybe that's a bit more suspect outside of Black Widow herself. But it is a little bit of a something that'll exist in Justice going forward after that pack comes out. Anyway, let's go on to something else I need to say about Justice. Oh, right, Justice. We'll just quickly go into heroes here. Justice, I think, is the go-to for any character that has no ability of thought. So the same characters before that I reckon don't really work in aggression against the harder encounters, such as Spider-Man, She-Hulk. They work amazingly with Justice because She-Hulk, Spider-Man, they just do so much damage on their own that giving them Justice so that they're able to remove threat when they need to, particularly She-Hulk, where for Justice allows you to do threat removal only on hero side, so you have threat removal on both sides. It works really well. It adds a lot to their solo capabilities. They're now very well rounded. you just got to get your damage, which you already had your damage. So, but characters that I think don't work particularly well with Justice, Iron Man works okay no matter what. His main suite is really good, but he's an example of a character that I would say is not that great in Justice, because really he just needs a way to finish the game quicker, and Justice doesn't give you that. Justice gives you a way to prolong the game so that you can win rather than lose. And he doesn't need that. That's not something that he needs. So I would rather take an Aggression Iron Man for solo over a Justice Iron Man. But even then, Iron Man solo, I'd probably take one of the other two, because he's not just like because you already have a fairly well-rounded set, but the Justice is just strengthening his best strength. Similar with what's it? Is it Captain Marvel and Captain America, two captains. Justice has a lot of energy resources, making Captain Marvel look really enticing, but she's already pretty good at ordering. She's got Crisis and Addiction and her 2/4 on her card. That's generally plenty, although she does have a lot of damage in her character set as well, so you can get away with it pretty easily. But if you took her somewhere else, like leadership, I think you'd probably get slightly better, and Captain America is a similar thing. He has a bit of damage in his character set, but he also just doesn't need the 4. He's already got 2, he can boost to 3 with Fearless Determination. And he can be fought twice in a turn by just spending a card. He doesn't need the 4. He's probably better off going elsewhere for the strongest deck that you're looking for. Although, like, I play any combination of Aspect and Hero. I've done quite a few of these combinations that I'm talking about that I wouldn't suggest. Just like, you're welcome to do it. This is just to let you know what you're getting yourself into. Anyway, let's go to the next one. Justice in general is pretty strong solo. Leadership cards. Leadership cards focus on allies. And if you've looked through your leadership set of cards, you would know that there's basically no attack or fort cards. It's really awkward with Miss Marvel. It has no cards that interact directly with its fort or attack, but a wide selection of good effects for allies. So yeah, so there's like Ready an Ally, there's like Recover an Ally, there's Ready all Avengers allies and give them +1, boost all your allies with lead from the front. There's a lot of ally effects. It's also the only draw card in Strength in Numbers, the only burst draw card in the game. And because of its, that's supposed to say chump blockers, not chum blockers. Whatever. Because of the focus on allies, they have decent access to a lot of fort and damage. Not a lot, but some fort, some damage, and just tons of chump blockers. The allies are very versatile. There's a ton of them. They have good effects on them. They're reasonably well split in traits as well. But you got like Maria Hill has 2 forts, as the Vision can potentially boost to 3 just by spending an energy resource. That's very strong. It's a lot of fort for just 1 resource, plus the resources to play Vision. there's only really one current sub-theme in leadership. It's all basically just boost allies, and then there's this one sub-theme of Avengers. If you look at the actual pool of them, they have, I think that's 5 in the aspect already, and then there's Avengers Assemble on top of that to boost them even more, like as like the kicker to make that tribal theme work. Um, it's already pretty good. And I wrote here 2, but I've written down 3. There are 3 main deck archetypes. There's the Avengers, which I was just speaking about there. The focus on getting 5 Avengers, because you can do that with Triskelion and Avengers Tower, and then you use Avengers Assemble for just a huge turn. Like, absolutely gigantic. It can be a little difficult to pull off, but you can get some big plays with that. Another option is Strength in Numbers. This also focuses on getting many allies. Doesn't necessarily have to be 5, but I don't see why it wouldn't be if you're doing it anyway. But in this one, you want to make sure your allies never die, because you want to always have 5 allies when you've got Strength in Numbers. So if an ally is dying, you're going to play a new one to replace it that turn, and then or within a couple turns, so that you can always draw a ton of cards with Strength in Numbers, so you'll cycle your deck really quickly. This is particularly strong in certain characters that have really powerful hero cards that are possibly limited in number. Well, they're always limited in number, but like they have really strong hero cards that you just want to cycle to as quick as possible. So Black Panther is really good in Strength in Numbers. She-Hulk is pretty good at it as well. I actually do, when I play She-Hulk leadership solo, I do a hybrid Avenger Strength in Numbers, because Hellcat is one of the only hero cards that is also an Avenger, and she's really good in that don't die focus. But you don't necessarily have to do Avengers to do Strength in Numbers. Doing a Strength in Numbers for only 4, or just ignoring Avengers Assemble and just letting them sit around even though they are Avengers is perfectly fine, and that's actually better if you have to focus on the honorary Avenger to get them back in play, because it makes that 5th one really awkward if it's the wrong character. And then there's good stuff, which generally means taking all the make the calls you can fit in your deck, because that is a very strong card, and possibly one of the best currently individually. But in that deck you just take whatever you think is best individually. Don't focus on those combos. So you wouldn't have, if you're doing good stuff, you probably wouldn't have Avengers Assemble. It's too expensive. It restricts what allies you can run, and you might not run Strength in Numbers, because one of the strongest things an ally can do is block for you. And you want to get that value out of all your allies, so you're probably going to let them block for you. It just makes it a lot easier. So this good stuff is the core set. Mostly these 2 were both introduced in the Captain America pack. So if you're going to play leadership and you want to try one of these 2 styles, you have to have the Captain America pack. But the good stuff, leadership has always been there. Most of the cards are from the core set. Don't think there's anything in the Captain America deck that I would genuinely put in, like 100% put in every good stuff deck. And just because leadership, and we'll go into heroes quickly here, because leadership is very well rounded, it suits most characters. It can be expensive, however. So characters that have a lot of expense in their hero set can have some issues with it, but the only one that I can think of that is like that currently is Iron Man. It takes so long to set up his suit, but you just ignore the leadership cards until you get it set up, which is still fine. I guess you could argue She-Hulk. She-Hulk has limited resources and it is kind of expensive, but She-Hulk is able to do some shenanigans with Avengers, and using Avengers Tower and Quinjets to really help with that, keeping the price down, which I think makes up for it. But if you had a character that had something similar to She-Hulk, where you've got like 4s, a bunch of 2s in their actual hero set, you might not be able to run leadership. But I don't feel like we have a character like that. Although Miss Marvel is the one character that I feel like leadership does not work with her. She has no synergy with the aspect cards at all. There's not a single attack or fort event in the whole set, so she only can rely on her hero cards at that point, which can work, but it's just not synergistic at all. She's probably better in other aspects, but you could play it. You could have fun. It just your win loss would be worse than if you were somewhere else. And I just feel like you'd still get you get a lot of those same plays that you had anyway. So I don't know why you'd want to do it, except for completionist sake. But anyway, that's that. Let's go on to the next one. Protection. Protection's all about preventing what the villain does. It contains the most response and interrupt cards out of all the sets. There's like 11 in protection, and there's like 7 in aggression and leadership and 6 in justice, and only 3 in basic. So it actually has more in its aspect than any other combination has overall available. There are some limited redirection of damage, so you can get a little bit of damage that way, but it's not a lot, and there's basically no fort in this one either. So a lot of the characters I was mentioning in aggression don't work that well in solo protection either. So your Spider-Mans, your Spider-Man, your She-Hulk, they have issues with it because they need to get their fort from somewhere to last the game as long as they need to, and they just don't have an option for where to get it. This is actually really good with characters that have a lot of fort because there is a little bit of damage here, and you can just prevent bad stuff from happening. So, like the Iron Man shenanigans. It even has a tech. It's the only aspect with a tech card in the form of energy barrier as well, which is really good for Iron Man. Your Captain Marvel there's a ton of energy here. It's useful for Nova. Energy barrier is another energy icon that it works really well. Protection. We'll just go on to the next bit. Protection only has one current sub-theme, and that's defending. So expert defense, assault vest, indomitable, counterpunch. It's probably the strongest sub-theme out of any of the aspects, and it just doesn't work in some characters. You want to make counterpunch work, you need to have probably at least 2 defense and at least 2 attack, which rules out Iron Man, Miss Marvel, Iron Man, Miss Marvel. I think that's it. There's a lot of 2/2s. It rules out Captain Marvel, but her helmet puts her back in as an option. But you get some interesting stuff with that. And I feel like there's there's 2 main deck archetypes. There's a heavy defense focused strategy and just your standard good stuff one. So the good stuff one, you're probably going to run your energy barriers, there might be some tackles, you've got You actually probably need this marble pack in order to play the good stuff one. There's just the protection cards in that were quite good. Whereas the heavy defense is what the core set was focused on. Because it has Indomitable, it has Assault Vest, it has various other things. And the only thing that's really come out that focuses on defense is Expert Defense in the Captain America pack. So you could easily, you can actually build a heavy defense in core set really easily, but it only suits certain characters. As I was saying before, you kind of want to have probably 2 attack and 2 defense. You could do the defense without the attack, without the counter attack, and then you only need at least 2 defense. But you can also do some shenanigans where you play a character that can be like Iron Man or Captain America. I haven't actually mentioned that either. There are some of these archetypes, like some of these decks can be boosted quite significantly with a character that can ready. So, for instance, heavy defense is really strong if you can ready once it gets to your turn, so that you can still use your character to exhaust for something after you defend. So Captain America and Iron Man are the only ones we currently have that can do that. But even if we go back, I'm not going to go back a slide, but back in leadership, you could also do morale boost shenanigans with them, where you boost them up and use their stats twice. But that's not really, I don't really think that is an archetype just yet. It's not quite there. It's not quite tested enough. But that is a shenanigan you can do in leadership. Yeah, so heavy defense, you probably want to have at least 2 defense, or the ability to ready, or I guess. Cap works really well with that. Anyone that ends up with retaliate will just be able to do this really well. I've done it as Black Panther before. It's quite fun. You just stay in hero mode for so long. And I think that's the point of heavy defense, so you probably want to do it in characters where you don't want to go to alter ego, ever, if at all possible. Whereas the good stuff, I think, if you have a character that does want to go into alter ego, you probably want to do some good stuff shenanigans. Just put in the cards, the most efficient. Throw some energy resources at Nova, I guess, if you can fit that in. Depends on the character's resource base. But anyway, that's the end of me going through the aspects. So just as a quick recap, and before we get into spoilers, characters have a tendency to fall into whether they can thwart or not. If they can thwart, they're generally focused on giving more damage so they can finish the game quicker, and if they can't thwart, they kind of need to fix that before they go anywhere. So, She-Hulk and Spider-Man kind of need to find out some way to thwarts to play solo. The Captain America, Iron Man, Captain Marvel all have the opposite end where they can thwart tons, and then you have some, like Miss Marvel has shenanigans with attack and thwart events, which if you've seen her set, and that can be used by different aspects to change her strengths. So, like, if you're playing Justice, she can already thwart, she just needs to work out how to damage. Playing Aggression, you've got the opposite problem a little bit. You just have to work it out. And Black Panther just kind of does everything reasonably well, because of the way Wakanda Forever works with his 4 Black Panther upgrades and his stat line of 222. And full recover, which is pretty good as well. He kind of sits in the middle ground where he can kind of slot into anything and still be good. And then, so we're going to go into the THOR set, and I'll quickly go over the THOR. As I've mentioned, I'm pretty sure I mentioned earlier, there are 7 aggression cards, 3 neutrals, he's got his set of 15, and he is aggression focused. So let's click in. What was bad with aggression? He has no way to remove threat without introducing a minion. He has one card in his hero set that lets him remove threat by basically discarding from the deck until he hits a minion. This does mean that he is a little bit more consistent than than Spider-Man in threat removal in sets without minions. But he also kind of introduces more threat because he's discarding, pushing across to a acceleration token. But so he's somewhat situational. I feel like he ends up in a spot very similar to Spider-Man where he doesn't have the threat removal that he needs most of the time to counter the threat removal of that he to counter the threat placement that is going down. He has less hand size at the start of the game. This one's interesting. He only has 5 on his alter ego side and 4 on his hero side by default. This is balanced by his hero ability drawing him cards and a card in his set called Asgard that gives +1 hand size no matter what form you're in. So the two main, he's going to have resource issues to start with. As I mentioned in leadership is quite expensive. It can be a problem, and Thor might actually have issues running leadership because of this. At least at the start of the game, I reckon if you can, in multiplayer, you probably won't, because he's in multiplayer you have a bit of time to set up, a bit more time to set up, and your allies can, not your allies, your other players can handle it for you, handle like the threat removal and some of the damage and stuff before you're able to get the full ball rolling, get his hand size up and whatnot. He does have the ability to get to 6 and 5 with Asgard, and then his hero ability starts making him some serious resources over time. But that's a thing that'll happen. But it will take time to get rolling. It's not going to be straight from the get-go like a She-Hulk. She-Hulk She-Hulk or Spider-Man, I guess, are like the best characters turn 1. They're always able to do something. Captain Marvel actually is pretty good too. Turn 1, she's straight out the gate and doing a lot of things. A little slow on Captain Marvel. Kind of want to get Ariel at some point. 4 of the 7 new cards interact with minions. So the reason I'm doing this video today, rather than waiting for Thor to actually come out, is the aggression set, that sub-theme of focusing on minions, is just getting enforced. They're enforcing it with the Thor pack rather than giving us a new sub-theme, which is interesting, although I really think that in solo, as aggression needs a new sub-theme. We'll have to wait for the next aggression pack for that. So yeah, the 4 cards are Hall of Heroes, which allows you to draw after you kill 3 minions. You can only use an alter ego. Valkyrie can do some damage to minions as she comes into play. Is it Valkyrie or Sif? I think it's Valkyrie. I'm pretty sure it's Valkyrie that's the aggression card. What else? There's one that's completely worthless in solo. It deals 1 damage, and if your aerial, that enemy engages with you, but all enemies in solo all minions are going to be engaged with you in solo. There's only one person to be engaged with. It's going to do nothing in solo. It's a bit of a shame. It's great in multiplayer. It's good in multiplayer. It's interesting in multiplayer. There's a very heavy physical and energy resources. Of the 7 cards, of the 7 aspect cards, there is 1 card that is mental and it's unique. That's the Hall of Heroes. And there, of the neutrals, there is one unique ally that is also, which is Heimdall, which is mentioned later, which is also mental. And the other two cards in basic are both red, so physical resources, and most of the actual aspect cards are energy, but I think Mean Strike is a physical resource. So that Mean Strike is not going to be very good overall. It's very character specific, but in Black Panther in particular, it's going to be very strong, and that allows Black Panther to push closer to this really strong physical energy resource shenanigans, and actually will probably make a pretty strong Black Panther Hulk deck, despite the fact Black Panther's resources are very split. Outside of the cards that are neutral and aspect, Teamwork seems very synergistic with Strength in Numbers decks. It just allows you to stop your ally from taking damage but still use its stats, which is exactly what you're looking for in Strength in Numbers. Under Surveillance, which is a Justice card, is very strong in solo. It adds 4 threat required to advance the main scheme. I'd probably never run more than 1, but I think just you throw it in. I reckon it's probably just going to be a one-off in good stuff. Justice. When it comes up, you play it. It deals with some of the problem scenarios, problem schemes, like it puts Rhino scheme up to 11 to fail, which means he can't hit it with a double scheme on a double scheme turn when you flip to Alter Ego from 0. Ultron's first one with 3 per player becomes 7 in solo, and that's actually a reasonable amount of threat, and you can probably keep that down. Maybe even stay on the first game the entire game, which would just be amazing. And claw both of those. If you can get it on both of them, you could legitimately have to put an extra 8 threat down. That's basically a whole third side scheme, a third main scheme, which is pretty good. Now I want to quickly speak about Heimdall. Heimdall is a unique basic ally. He is 5 cost, so he may not even be able to be played in some decks. Depending on how your resources look out, you're going to have to put in a little bit of ramp just to play him. Although Spider-Man, funnily enough, because of spider senses, will be able to play him in either form basically every turn, even if it will take their full turns to do. So that's an interesting thing. But anyway, the biggest thing about him is that he can thwart a lot for an initial card. Doesn't go away. He has 2 thwarts, 4 hit points, so you can do 6 by default instead of block, or you can do 8 overall. That's a very strong amount. It can help the low thwart characters play at aggression. If you're not playing Hulk, you can throw in on a low thwart character a Heimdall. You've got to work out how you're going to play it. Maybe you include some more ramp than you normally would, or maybe you have the ramp anyway. In She-Hulk, I often put a lot of ramping cards. I often have the enhanced resource cards in She-Hulk specifically to give her more resources so that she can more easily play Gamma Slam. So Heimdall just allows you to thwart more, and that's valuable in certain characters as well. Like, speaking about this whole time. So, just final thoughts on the Thor pack. Aggression, it's probably just going to be the same. I don't think this is going to shake up the aggression metagame in solo. It's just going to be the same as it's always been. and that's not a problem. It's just I don't think it's overly interesting. The Black Widow pack, I think it will be more interesting from a solo perspective, and I think aggression as a solo player is just not that interesting currently. So that is everything. Now, hopefully, I haven't made this information just too specific to the card pool as it currently is. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. But yeah, if you have any comments or want to talk about anything, even talk about anything related to solo deck building and how they interact with aspects, feel free to leave comments in the description, and I'll try to respond as I can. Okay? Have a nice day.